Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I, Dr. Muhammad Latif, Associate Professor of Medicine, Oxford Trust Hospital, welcome the students of 4th year MBBS AMDC today for the lecture. I am taking the lectures on hematology. Today is the first lecture. Today I will be delivering a lecture on ITP or immunothrombocytopenic purpura. First of all, the learning objective. After the lecture, you will be able to define ATP. You will be able to enlist the different etiologies of ITP, and you will be able to enumerate various modes of presentation of ITP or different clinical manifestations of the ITP. And finally, you will be able to learn the management of the ITP as well as the relapsing and refractory form of the ITP. Normal physiology. The platelets are normally formed in the bone marrow from the progenitor cells known as megakaryocytes. The normal life of the platelets is 10 days, and every day 1/10 of the population is replaced. And the normal count is between 150,000 to 450,000. The abnormal or normal response of the platelets in the circulation is that the platelets adhere to the vessel wall, they adhere to themselves, and we call these phenomena as aggregation and adhesion. The aggregation leads to the formation of the clots or plugs in the vasculature, and this may happen in case of coronary vessels, in the cerebral vessels, in the gut vessels, in the leg veins, etc. So the different organs may become victims of these plug formation or clot formations. The membrane of the platelets which has the phospholipids on itself. It serves as a scaffold for the thrombin generation. By scaffold, I mean that the phospholipid membrane on the platelets provides a platform for thrombin generation. Now, the different levels of the platelets will be having different clinical features. Up to the level of 50,000 platelets, there are no symptoms, and generally such patients you can wait. In such patients you can wait, or in other words, no treatment is required. However, when the fall in the platelet level goes down to the 20,000, then you need to begin the treatment or therapy. And below 10,000 or around 10,000, you should hospitalize the patient, and below the 10,000 platelet count, there is a high risk of intracerebral hemorrhage or ICH. So the purpose is that you need to know the levels of the platelets all the time. Once you check the CBC, always keep an eye on the platelets. If you are thinking of or visualizing of, or you are suspecting that the patient is a candidate of the thrombocytopenia, first of all have a glance at the platelet count, because that will give you an idea as to what to do, whether patient sends the home, whether the patient needs to be hospitalized, or whether the patient is in a danger zone, and so that he should be warned of, or the treatment should be offered instantly, promptly, in anticipation. There are three types of the thrombocytopenia. Three modes of the deficiencies creator of the platelets. First is the pseudo-thrombocytopenia. It is not actually a thrombocytopenia, that is why it is known as pseudo-thrombocytopenia. I'll explain the pseudo-thrombocytopenia in a minute. The other causes or etiologies or categories which we rate as underproduction of the platelets from the bone marrow, I mean from the progenitor cells or megakaryocytes, then the splenic sequestration, this spleen is enlarged and it breaks down the destroys the platelets while they pass through the spleen. This is known as splenic sequestration and destruction, or peripheral destruction of the platelets. These are the three mechanisms of the or categories of the which lead on to the deficiency or thrombocytopenia. What is pseudo-thrombocytopenia? Thrombocytopenia, there is a clumping of the platelets, but neither the patient has a bleeding nor the patient has a clotting tendency. That is why we call it as thrombocytopenia, or in other simple word, the pseudo-thrombocytopenic patients, they are likely to be or remain asymptomatic. Now, thrombocytopenia, peripheral destruction, there are two ways or two mechanisms implicated in the peripheral destruction of the platelets. These are non-immune mechanisms and immune mechanisms. In the non-immune mechanisms, the platelets, they are activated and they are consumed themselves. The classical examples of platelet activation and consumption are thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura and DIC, or disseminated intravascular coagulation. The immune mechanisms which are responsible for the peripheral destruction of the platelets, they are antibody-mediated platelet destruction, which may be primary, secondary, or drug-induced. Now, the definition: it is a syndrome in which the platelets are coated with the autoantibodies, and this coating of the antibodies is because of the presence of the antigens on the phospholipid antigen on the surface of the platelets, which results in the splenic sequestration and phagocytosis by the macrophages. So this is the definition of the ITP. The etiology: in the etiology, IgG autoantibodies are directed against the glycoproteins present on the platelet membrane. Actually, this is though we call it as an etiology, actually it is the mechanism, I mean the antigen-antibody reaction. The antigen sites are present on the phospholipid membrane. The autoantibodies are produced by different causes, which I will be discussing in the coming slides, and ultimately this results in the thrombocytopenia by the breakdown or destruction of the platelets. Incidence is approximately 100 cases per million of the patients, and half of the patients are children, or half of the victims are children. In adults, there are two peaks. One peak is that the patients are younger, less than 40 years of age, and usually these patients are female gender. And if the age is greater than 60, then no gender discrimination is found in cases of thrombocytopenia. I mean both male and female may be randomly be the cases of ITP. ITP is a diagnosis of exclusion. No lab test can diagnose ITP. You have to exclude all the etiologies of ITP, then thrombocytopenia, then finally when you fail to or exhaust to find any other cause, secondary cause or primary cause, then you finally label as idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura or immune mechanism thrombocytopenia. Now, etiologies of the patient may be acute, may be chronic. Acute etiologies in patients may present after a few weeks of post-viral illness, especially the patients are children, younger age group. Then the chronic form or chronic type, they present or manifest with insidious onset, which means they present gradually and slowly, or in other words, gradual or slow onset. That the chronic form, gradual, insidious. Insidious means gradual or slow onset. The mechanism remains the same. There is autoantibody stimulation. The membrane, platelet membrane glycoproteins become immunogenic, leading to autoantibody production in the circulation by the cells, and the autoantibody specificity is that the 75% of the autoantibodies are directed against platelet glycoprotein 2b3a or glycoprotein 1b and 4, and their complexes they destroy the platelets. 25% are directed glycoproteins, autoantibodies are directed against other membrane epitopes. By epitope I mean epitopes are the sites of antigen or antigenic sites on the membrane of the platelets, and they are of the types glycoprotein 5, glycoprotein 1a, glycoprotein 2a or glycoprotein 4. So see, all these glycoproteins present on the surfaces of the platelets, they leads to the production of the antibodies against the platelets themselves, and they are destroyed. In the history, you have to find out the factors which are responsible for the thrombocytopenia, and you have to see also the symptoms, I mean the mode of presentation of the patient. Then you see the signs, and you differentiate between the mild, moderate and severe bleeding tendencies, because the patients commonly present with the purpura and bleeding, etc. So it depends upon the level of the platelets and then the momentum of the bleeding, I mean the more bleeding from more sides, one side or at different sides simultaneously. The systemic illnesses you have to consider in adults. Thrombocytopenia may be a manifestation of systemic lupus erythematosus or acute or chronic leukemias. Thrombocytopenia may also be caused by myelodysplasia. In the children, ITP is usually is because of the primary immune deficiency syndrome. Now the post-viral illnesses are also responsible commonly for the ITP, and the viruses which are implicated in the ITP are EB virus or Epstein-Barr virus, varicella zoster virus, cytomegalovirus, rubella virus, and most typical association with viral is the upper respiratory tract infection or gastroenteritis. So anybody who presents to you with the flu-like symptoms or sore throat or cough may be productive, non-productive, I mean the upper respiratory tract infection, and the other variety or mode of presentation, gastroenteritis, I mean the patient presents with vomiting and diarrhea. Do not take it very simple. Also, in the corner of your brain, do think that the patient might not be turned out to be at a later stage as a case of ITP. However, transient ITP sometimes may be because of the immunizations. Nowadays, people are getting corona vaccination. So keep in mind that the patient can develop ITP. Similarly, in the HIV at the later stages, and especially those HIV cases who are drug users, they can also have ITP. Now, drug-induced thrombocytopenia, FDA has approved 1,444 drugs as culprits in the causation of the thrombocytopenia. The low platelets exhibit a strict temporal relationship with the initiation of the drugs, which means that the relationship between the count of the platelets and the start of the drug, time of the start of the drug, is of the importance. So temporal means time related. When the drug was started, how many days, how many months, how many years the drug was started. For example, the patient is put on immunosuppression like azathioprine. So azathioprine can cause, immunosuppressant drugs can cause low platelet count. So that is why the temporal relationship I have explained to you, that it is a time related relationship with the drug as to when the drug was started. So you have to dig out a history from the patient. If the patient is suffering from chronic disease like autoimmune disorder, like malignancies, and like transplant patient, the patient are offered immunosuppressant drugs, and in such cases history will be very easily suggestive to you of the thrombocytopenia. And if you want to know that this is because of the drug, stop the drug, the count will recover. So it is a sort of litmus paper test that you can find out the etiology of the ITP. I stop the drug and I find out, check the CBC following the stoppage of the drug, and I found out that the platelet count has risen in number, or the platelet count has increased in number or recovered. So drug induced ITP is always greater than other causes, and there is evidence of antibody formation. The drugs commonly quinidine and quinine over the counter sales, and the usually over the counter drugs are taken, and similarly tonic water in cocktails, bitter lemon beverages can also lead to the immunothrombocytopenia. Heparin is another drug which we are commonly using in acute coronary syndrome, etc. Or patient will say presents to you with angina, patient presents to you with stroke, etc. We offer this drug very commonly. Patient comes to you with DVT, and we start with the bolus and then the continuous infusion of the drug. So this can cause, heparin can cause very commonly thrombocytopenia, and sometimes I have managed the patients who after this administration of the heparin develop bleeding, and I have to offer the antagonism of the heparin, antidote of the heparin. So antiplatelet drugs can cause glycoprotein 2B3A inhibitors. These drugs are eptifibatide and epsiximab. These are used in the acute coronary syndrome while doing the PCI or angiography, and the mechanism is again the same. The glycoprotein 2B3A glycoproteins, they come into action and they lead on to the destruction of the platelets. Similarly, antibiotics like cephalosporins, rifampicin, gold salts, and analgesics, neuroleptics, diuretics, and antihypertensive drugs can also cause thrombocytopenia. Alcohol can also cause it. Acute and chronic liver diseases, acute or chronic alcoholic diseases, and when ultimately the patients develop CLD, there is hypersplenism. Sometimes the spleen is so enlarged that it crosses the midline with what we call as massive splenomegaly, the massive splenomegaly is very commonly associated with the thrombocytopenia, but sometimes the moderate spleen is also causing thrombocytopenia. Okay, always keep in mind that hypersplenism may be because of any disease like CLD for example. Similarly, Felty syndrome is another disease which is found in rheumatoid arthritis. The patient can have splenomegaly, patient can have rheumatoid arthritis, and patient can have pancytopenia, and in the pancytopenia there is deficiency of the platelet because of the destruction, and that is because of the hypersplenism. Now, clinically, the patient can present abruptly, or the patient can present to you with the insidious or gradual onset, having purpura, menorrhagia, epistaxis, gingival bleeding, and it is commonly triggered by the viral illnesses. The patient may have sometimes the bruising only, or bruising tendency, easy bruisability. Then evaluate, check the lymph nodes and splenomegaly for the patient, and sometimes the patient may have hemorrhagic bully. Then look for the stigmata of the bleeding like gingiva and gastrointestinal. Then do the fundoscopy, and you can find the retinal hemorrhages, especially in cases of ICH or intracerebral hemorrhages. Then the patient can have blood blisters and oral petechiae, which we call as wet purpura. Wet purpura is a harbinger of the intracranial hemorrhage, which means that the person who have bloody blisters and petechiae, he is likely to be suffering from intracranial hemorrhage in the near future. So be watchful, be careful, extra cautious when the patient have blood filled blisters on the body and oral petechiae. Be careful that the patient may not suffer from the stroke because of the intracranial hemorrhage. In the laboratory, you go for the CBC normal, except giant platelets, check vitamin B12 and folate levels, look at peripheral smear to exclude pseudothrombocytopenia, also exclude TTP, especially if anemia is present. Then send coagulation screening, PTA, PTT, INR to exclude DIC, and similarly check the status of HIV, hepatitis serology, and TSH levels. Then finally you have to the bone marrow for the final diagnosis. If you exhaust all laboratory investigation, then you ultimately will have to go to the bone marrow to find whether megakaryocytes are present or not. Imaging is required in cases of intracerebral hemorrhage, which is CT brain. Then the management of the ITP. In the asymptomatic adults, if the count is 40 to 50,000, no treatment is required. Check platelet count at regular interval. If the platelet count is between 20 to 30,000, start these corticosteroids, and simultaneously you should stop the NSAIDs and aminosalicylates to improve platelet function, because both can interfere with the cyclooxygenative pathway, and the platelet aggregation and adhesion to the vessel wall can be impaired by both of these drugs. If the platelet count is less than 10,000, treat with the prednisolone and use 1 mg per kg of the body weight. If the platelet count is less than 10,000, then treat with prednisolone plus intravenous immunoglobulins. The dose of the immunoglobulins is 1 gram per kg of the body for 2 days, and such patients are hospitalized. Then IVIGs are offered. Along with prednisolone, add calcium and vitamin to prevent the bone losses. If the patient has severe bleeding, may need platelet transfusion simultaneously. Follow platelet count daily until the count is greater than 20,000, then discontinue, discharge patient with close-up follow-up. Once platelet count normalizes, commence a slow steroid taper over 6 to 8 weeks. So, meaning thereby that you should not taper the steroids before 6 weeks. Remember it. One third of the adults will have gone into remission within 6 to 8 weeks. That is why the cutoff value is 6 to 8 weeks, that you need a remission of the thrombocytopenia, which means that the platelet count should rise. Then two-third of the patients will relapse during or after steroid taper, which means that if you have switched off the steroids after tapering, there is a high risk, which means 66% of the patients, they have a chance of relapse of the thrombocytopenia or immunothrombocytopenia. Management of the relapse ITP. For the relapse patient, you have to use steroids to increase the platelet count out of the danger zone, but this cannot substitute for definitive treatment of the relapse cases. Prednisolone serves as a crutch to support a dangerously low platelet count. Then you have to consider splenectomy. First you start with the crutch steroids, then you think of the splenectomy, which is a standard of care treatment or intermittent treatment with the anti-D immune globulin. Meanwhile you can offer anti-D immune globulin followed by splenectomy. Splenectomy is effective in two-thirds of the patients, leading to normal platelet counts. It can be performed via open method or by laparoscopy, and you have to vaccinate the patient and care against encapsulated organisms 2 weeks prior the splenectomy. And you will need steroids and IVIGs before procedure to boost platelet counts preoperatively. Continuing the relapse ITP management, can be used you can use the anti-D immune globulin. It can be used as a substitute for immunoglobulins for maintenance therapy. It is very useful in patients with contraindications to splenectomy. I mean those patients who refuse splenectomy or those patients in whom the splenectomy is contraindicated. You can make bridge of the anti-D immune globulin. It coats the RBCs with IgGs and allows red cells to serve as a decoy for splenic macrophages. Right? This is an interesting term, decoy. Now what is happening here, that the anti-D immune globulin, it coats the RBCs, and macrophages take the RBCs at platelets, their victims, because macrophages love platelets as the victims. So when the anti-D immunoglobulin is given, it coats the RBCs, and when the RBCs are coated with the anti-D immune globulin, they serve as a decoy. Decoy means they are enticed, they are seduced, they are lured. The macrophages, splenic macrophages, they are lured. In other words, simpler words, they are cheated by offering the anti-D immune globulin, and they start destroying the RBCs, and the platelets are spared, and their count fall does not occur. So this is an indirect way of saving the platelets, but at the cost of the RBCs. Very interesting. Patient must be Rh positive, not effective after splenectomy. I mean anti-D immunoglobulin should not be given after splenectomy. It is designed to cause hemolytic anemia, as I already said earlier. that the RBCs serve as a decoy for the splenic macrophages. So hemoglobin of the patient may drop because of the RBC destruction by the macrophages. Very interesting. Intermittent dosing may allow patients to avoid splenectomy. Treatment of refractory cases. Immunosuppressive drugs like rituximab, anti-CD20. It is effective in 40% of the patients, may be used before splenectomy. So rituximab which is anti-CD20. It can be given to the patients who have a refractory immunothrombocytopenia. The other options amongst the immunosuppressive agents are mycophenolate mofetil and cyclophosphamide. Adjunct agents which can also be used in the refractory ITP are thrombopoietin receptor agonists, which increase the platelets. They are romiplostim and eltrombopag and avatrombopag. Right? So these are the adjunct agents which increase the platelets. Then there is a sustained response after stopping the drugs. I mean, you can discontinue the treatment, but the platelet count will not fall after giving these adjunct agents, which are thrombopoietin receptor agonists. This is the algorithm of the patient which I have already described to you. So initial treatment with the steroids and either prednisolone or dexamethasone along with immunoglobulin, then the relapse or persistent cases again. I have told you the rituximab, NTD and IVIGs and the thrombopoietin receptor agonists. Then the persistent or worsening IPD, you can offer mycophenolate mofetil as chemotherapeutic agent, azathioprine and cyclosporine. And finally you can do the autologous transplantation. So the final, when you have exhausted all the treatments and your patient is not responding, or rather he is relapsing, and finally the patient has become refractory to the treatment. In other words, simply, if all treatments have failed, then you have to go to the autologous bone marrow transplantation. One third of the patients will have an inadequate response to splenectomy. Management of these patients involves accepting that they have a chronic incurable condition. The target platelet count should be lower. Initially, in the earlier slide I said our target count should be above 40 to 50,000 platelets, with which the patient can survive symptom free. But here in the refractory cases of ITP, our targets are lowered down to 30,000 or absence of bleeding. These 2 points should be taken into consideration. Either the count should not fall below the 30,000 or the patient should not have bleeding. If there is bleeding, then you have to intervene. If there is absence of bleeding, then you don't require any intervention. Now the recent drugs which have been developed are fostamatinib, which is approved by the FDA for management of the chronic ITP in refractory cases. So this is the latest drug, the fostamatinib, right? It has been approved by the FDA. Drug-induced ITP, usually removing the offending drug will allow the platelet to rise on their own. If the platelets are severely low, platelet transfusion may be required, and it will serve the purpose. IVIG is particularly helpful in quinine-induced ITP. Heparin-induced thrombocytopenia is seen in 1 to 3% of the patients treated with heparin. Usually 7 to 10 days after heparin started, platelet fall by at least 1/3 to 1/2. Patients do not have to be thrombocytopenic, can occur earlier in patients who have been previously exposed to heparin. as subcutaneous injections. So heparin usually is given in patients of coronary disease or those patients who present with ischemic strokes. So you start them, and in the infusion form you give to the offer to the patients of the DVT, and so the number day 10 is very crucial. So at the 10th day you should be anticipating that the patient might not develop thrombocytopenia and its key or consequences. It is caused by antibodies against the complex of heparin and platelet factor 4. These antibodies activate the platelets. So factor 4 and antibodies, they play a role in the activation of the platelets. It can lead paradoxically to thrombosis in up to half of the patients. It is more common in patients with vascular diseases, thrombosis especially. It's more common in vascular diseases. Alternate presentation of the HIT or heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Small drop in platelet count, especially with skin necrosis. I mean, the heparin can cause skin necrosis, the other side effect along with thrombocytopenia. Earlier onset thrombocytopenia with heparin re-exposure. Sometimes if you keep on expecting that the patient is likely to be developing thrombocytopenia at number 10 day, it is not all the time true. You can find thrombocytopenia earlier. Okay, so keep in mind that any time thrombocytopenia after the initiation of the therapy with the heparin, thrombocytopenia can be found out. Then the delayed onset thrombocytopenia is also there, and thrombosis can happen after stopping heparin. So beware, the patient can present with the administration of heparin both with the bleeding as well as with the thrombosis. Okay. And thrombosis is after the heparin exposure, I have already explained to you. Then the treatment of the heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. If platelets fall on heparin, stop heparin immediately. Stop heparin. Nothing will happen, and this sometimes is the only requirement. Then use a different anticoagulation, lepuridine directed against thrombin inhibitor and argatroban. They do not cause neither they activate the platelets or nor they cause thrombocytopenia. So these two drugs are in such patients, these two drugs are the drugs of choices, lepuridine and argatroban. The differential diagnosis of the ITP includes the disseminated intravascular coagulation, infections like HIV, hepatitis B and C, systemic lupus erythematosus, along with antiphospholipid syndrome, malignancies like lymphoproliferative disorders, then CLD and hypersplenism, bone marrow diseases like myelodysplasias, leukemias, metastatic disease, myelofibrosis, aplastic anemia and Gaucher diseases. So there is a long list of the drugs diseases which you have to always keep in mind. And earlier in the initial part of the lecture, I said that it is a diagnosis of exclusion. So remember it also, that though you have to have a look for all these diseases which are displayed in this slide, but simultaneously you also keep in mind that it is a diagnosis of exclusion. Recent transfusion, recent vaccination, inherited thrombocytopenic anemia, congenital megakaryocytic thrombocytopenia, Wiskott-Aldrich syndrome, Bernard-Solium syndrome, type 2 von Willebrand disease, platelet type von Willebrand disease, and DIC, TTP, hemolytic uremic syndrome, and Ewing syndrome. They are also the differentials of the ITP. So a long list of the differentials you have to remember. Now coming to the sign. Now this you see the over the legs and the thighs there are small purpuric spots on the in the ITP cases. Now large purpuric lesions, these are called as ecchymotic lesions. Now ITP causing bleeding and bruising. See, keep on remembering that we start from the spots, then ecchymosis, then bleeding and bruising. So now remember, the purpuric lesion can also be found on the faces, and in the past natural treatment for the such lesions which were misdiagnosed, and people used to use the natural drug Ayurvedic drug. In ultimately, when they found out that it is ITP, even they continued using Ayurvedic drug, but this now has been discontinued with the advancement of the recent drugs which I have already discussed and shared with you. So this is just a past history tracing of the ITP treatment. The purpura in pregnancy, you can see the lesions of on the abdomen and torso, and other parts of the body. Then the patient can present to you with the black eye, having ecchymosis and subconjunctival hemorrhages. Then the patient can present to you with the gum bleeding. Always be suspicious of anybody who comes to you with the gum bleeding. Always keep in mind that is not simply a gingivitis. It may be a bleeding diathesis, and it may be because of the ITP. Then these patients having large ecchymotic lesions, they present with the bleeding also on the thighs and the legs. Conclusion: ITP is a lifelong disease. Presentation ranges from mild to moderate and severe, and the patient may have a relapsing and refractory characteristics, and occasionally it may become fatal, but not always. And treatment range from steroids to blood transfusions to IVIGs or immunoglobulins, anti-Ds, immunoglobulins, monoclonal antibodies, immunosuppressive agents, and splenectomy followed by the autologous bone marrow transplantation. In pregnancy, azathioprine and immunoglobulins are relatively contraindicated. It is category C. Cyclosporine, dapsone, and thrombopoietin receptor, alemtuzumab, rituximab, they are not recommended. Now, assignment is being given to you. Please solve the SCQs and send within 30 minutes after the lecture. The students who will not solve these assignment will be marked absent. Now, this is SCQ 1. This is again SCQ. This is again SCQ. Thank you very much for joining me today. Now see the similarity of the or example of the ITP. The girl is suffering from ITP, and what she says: it is safe to say I am fighting like a girl and plan to win. So meaning thereby, ITP is a friendly disease like dolphin. So remember ITP by dolphin. Dolphin is a friendly fish. It is not harmful to the human beings. Okay, I say goodbye from Akhtar Trust Hospital.